Let's try make Doenjang. Doenjang is a Korean fermented soybean paste. Sort of like a Korean miso, it usually comes in containers that look like this. This is really simple to make, but it'll take a few months of fermenting before it's ready. The cool thing about this method is that it will actually produce doenjang and soy sauce. We only need one ingredient to start with, and that's soybeans. I've already prepped my soybeans by soaking them overnight. Now I'm going to boil them for around 4 hours until they're soft like this. Once soft, I'll use a masher to mash the soybeans into a chunky paste. The mash was a little uncomfortable, so I started using this rolling pin and it worked super well. Once I've mashed the whole batch, I'm taking it all and shaping it into these bricks. At this point, this is called meju. Once I've shaped my meju blocks, I'll put them in some baking paper and let them dry for 24 hours. I made this little corner of my kitchen my fermentation corner, so I also added a small fan which I'll set on low to provide some airflow in the area. I'm going to be making this sort of like a new TikTok series, so make sure you're following my TikTok to see the progress. Part 2 will be out tomorrow, once the meju has dried out for a day. This is part 2 of trying to make doenjang, a Korean fermented soybean paste. Yesterday I prepped the soybeans by soaking them overnight in water, and then boiling them for 4 hours. Once cooked, I mashed them and then formed them into these blocks called meju. I left them to dry out overnight, and now it's time to prepare them for the main fermentation period. You can see the outside of the meju has become pretty hard, and at this point it's as firm as clay, and it's pretty dry on the outside. These need to hang for a few weeks to ferment, so I'm going to tie some string around the meju blocks. I'm using regular butcher's twine, but traditionally this would be done with rice straw and made into rope. I'm doubling up on the string to spread the weight and stop the string digging into the meju too much. I'm just doing a basic wraparound, sort of like those old paper string parcels, and leaving excess at the top so I can tie it into a loop. Once it's all tied up, I'm hanging them in my fermentation corner. I drilled some hooks into the underside of the cabinet so that I could hang these up. Over time, these should ferment and become browner and darker in color. The next big update for this won't come for a few weeks, but I'll be posting occasional updates on how the blocks are changing color and smell. Make sure you're following to see all my updates for this and my makgeolli, which should be ready very soon. A few weeks ago, I made these blocks of fermented soybeans called meju. This is all part of the process of making Korean doenjang paste and Korean soy sauce. These blocks have been drying for a few weeks now. While the color isn't as deep as I expected on the outside, you can see inside the cracks that the color is deepened and some of the mold has formed. All good signs. The next step in the process is to let these blocks soak in salt water for a few more weeks. So let's get on with it. First thing I need to do is wash and scrub the surface mold off the blocks, then let them air dry. While the blocks are drying, I'll make my salt brine. I'm going to go for an 18 to 20% brine using sea salt. Once the blocks are dry, I'll drop them into the brine along with a couple dried chilies, dried Chinese dates, a couple of dried shiitake mushrooms, and some charcoal. These need to sit in this brine for a few weeks now, but slowly the liquid should darken into a soy sauce and the soybean blocks should turn into doenjang paste. Follow to stay updated on this project and many more to come. So it's been about a week since I put the soybean blocks into the salt water, and so I'm just going to do an update video. So let's open this up and see how it looks. It smells pretty good actually. It just smells like bean. It doesn't smell bad. I've had this sitting in the sun in a room that gets a lot of sunshine. So you can see the color there. It's starting to get nice and dark, and this is only after 1 week. The bean blocks are starting to break apart. It's starting to smell like doenjang, but it's not too strong anymore. It's not as strong as it was before. I'll put this back on, and then we'll let this, I'll put this back, and then I'll do another update in a week. So this is probably like week 2 or 3 that the soybean blocks have been in the salt water, so we'll do another checkup. Let's get this lid off. It's starting to smell much more like doenjang now. Let's get this out. So let's have a look at these. These are still kind of looking the same. Still pretty much got their shape. Feels a bit spongy. Some of you were asking in the last video what this stuff is, and it is basically the mold from when we were fermenting the blocks, but it looks like it hasn't been spreading around. I'll probably pick them off once this is all ready. Let's look at the liquid. So it's still quite bright. Maybe once it's done, and then we take this liquid, then we separate it, and then we boil it up and then let it age for a bit longer. It should darken up a lot. And then we'll put this back in the sunny spot. Let's do another doenjang update. For those who are curious, I've been keeping the doenjang in the front room of our house. You can see I've just got it sitting here where it gets a bit of sun. That is really starting to smell like good doenjang now. Just those extra couple weeks from the last time we did an update, and this has become really, it smells great, I have to be honest. As expected, there's little blooms of fungus, but this is not a bad fungus. This is actually a good fungus. I'll still pick them out though. First thing I'll do is I'll pick out all these little bits of, see that? These little bits of, we'll call them flowers. In Korea they call them flowers, so we'll call them flowers. They're not that big either, so nothing to really worry about. So let's look at the liquid. It's still kind of the same. Well, this will be soy sauce. Once we separate the soy sauce and the doenjang, and then we let this go even longer for maybe another extra year or so, this will darken down all the way to like that soy sauce color that you know. I don't know if this shows like an accurate color, but this is starting to darken nicely into what I know as doenjang, or what a lot of people know as doenjang. It smells like it as well. It's not as strong just yet, but hopefully it will get there soon. This is going a lot better than I expected. But yeah, that's the update for, what's the date today? 31st of May. Make sure you're following me on TikTok as well to get more updates on this. And then this will go back there. It's time for another doenjang update. If you've been following this since February of this year, welcome back. If you're new here, allow me to explain what's going on. Doenjang is a Korean fermented paste made from soybeans, sort of like a miso paste. The past 4 months, I've been on a mission to make my own Korean doenjang from scratch. If you want to watch the whole process, there's a playlist to my bio where I've collected all the doenjang episodes in chronological order. Anyways, after 4 months, I can finally announce that there's still one more step in the process. Sorry guys, but trust me, I think it'll be worth it. For this next step, I'm taking out the charcoal, mushrooms, jujubes, chilies, and discarding them. They've done their job for now. Then I'm separating the liquid from the soybean paste. This liquid here is the beginnings of Korean style soy sauce. I'm setting the soybean paste off to the side to drain and filtering the liquid into a pot, which I'm going to bring up to a boil. While the soy sauce is boiling and the soybean paste is drained, I'm going to break up the big chunks of soybean and mush everything together into a more pasty consistency. Here I'm disinfecting the container I'm going to keep my soybean paste in for its final ferment. I sprinkled some sea salt in the bottom of the container, then started pushing down the bean paste into the container, making sure to push out as much air as possible. Then sprinkling more sea salt over top, placing a piece of parchment paper that I cut to shape, and to make sure it stays, I'll fill a bag with dried chickpeas and use it as a weight. Then it's back on with the lid, and this will go back into storage to mature even further for probably a few more weeks. Then back to the soy sauce. Once it's boiling, I turned the heat off, skimmed off the scum, and let it cool down to room temperature. I disinfected the vessel I'm going to keep this in, and then poured all the cooled off soy sauce through a cheesecloth lined funnel. I ended up with almost a gallon of soy sauce here. I put the bung in and labeled it with the date, and now this soy sauce needs to sit to age. This can be anywhere up to a year, but over time the colour should darken into what we know as soy sauce. I'll be posting updates on the colour and smells coming from this over the next few weeks, so make sure you're following to keep up with this and any other Korean foods and experiments I do. It's time for another doenjang update. If you've been following this since February of this year, welcome back. If you're new here, allow me to explain what's going on. Doenjang is a Korean fermented paste made from soybeans, sort of like a miso paste. The past 4 months, I've been on a mission to make my own Korean doenjang from scratch. If you want to watch the whole process, there's a playlist to my bio where I've collected all the doenjang episodes in chronological order. So it's only been about 2 weeks since the last update, so I'm not going to do anything big today, but I thought the progress on the soy sauce was quite interesting, so I wanted to share it. But first, let's talk about the doenjang paste. I decided to take the parchment paper off and leave it open to the air, with a cheesecloth covering the container. I did this because I need to evaporate some of the liquid out. I also sprinkled some more salt over top to create a dry crust, which should help protect the doenjang. Now for the soy sauce. The color of this has darkened drastically, and it's now really beginning to look like soy sauce. However, there is quite a bit of sediment at the bottom, so I wanted to try and filter it out. I emptied the soy sauce into another bowl, which is sterilized, then washed out the original container to remove most of the sediment. Then I sterilized the original container, dried it out, and slapped together this funnel with a coffee filter over top. Now this could work to get a super clear liquid, but just look at that drip rate. This won't do. So instead I'm using a cheesecloth, which I boiled for a few minutes to clean it, folded it twice, so now it's 4 layers of cheesecloth, laid it inside the funnel and began pouring the soy sauce back in. Now I'm pretty confident this is catching a lot of sediment because of how much the flow rate slows down. I'm guessing this is because the sediment is getting caught and slowing it down. Anyways, that was much faster, and now this is ready to go back into aging. This time I'm going to put this by a window so they can get some light as well, and we can see how much more the color changes. It's time for another doenjang update. If you've been following this since February of this year, welcome back. If you're new here, allow me to explain what's going on. Doenjang is a Korean fermented paste made from soybeans, sort of like a miso paste. I've been on a mission to make my own Korean doenjang from scratch. If you want to watch the whole process, there's a playlist to my bio where I've collected all the doenjang episodes in chronological order. I've been watching this for a few weeks now, and the size of this bucket has kind of been bothering me. It's too big, so I decided to do something about it. I'm going to move the doenjang into this glass container instead, but I'm also going to run it through a food processor to make it a bit pastier. I'm not taking any chances, so I'm disinfecting everything with strong rubbing alcohol. I'm just scooping and blitzing the doenjang bit by bit until I fill up this jar. I also sprinkle a little salt at the bottom of the jar and packing the doenjang down with my hand. Rinse and repeat until the entire jar is filled. Then I sprinkle more salt over top, and this time I'm throwing it into my dehydrator because I need the top layer to dry out to protect the rest of the paste. I'm mainly doing this because I'm flying to South Korea in a few weeks, so I won't be able to keep an eye on it, so I want it to take care of itself. Now for the soy sauce, or rather soy sauces. If you don't know yet, I also made a dark soy sauce a week or two ago. The Korean soy sauce is still doing great. There's still a bit of sediment at the bottom, and the color of liquid is still getting darker and darker. The dark soy sauce still has some ways to go. It's definitely taken on a brown color since I made it. Every day I'm giving this a swirl around, and I'm going to keep the soybeans in here for maybe 5 to 6 months.